Oh, good evening. Yeah, it's evening. Sorry. It's Monday, October the 28th, and what a beautiful day it's been. Wonderful, wonderful day. We're going to go straight into the King James Bible. This is 1 Kings, and it's chapter 10. And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions. And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels that bear spices, and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions. There was not anything hid from the king, which he told her not. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom, and the house he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent by which he went up to the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. She said to the king, It was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thy acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit, I believed not the words until I came, and mine eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told me. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceedeth the fame which I heard. Happy are thy men, happy are these thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and that hear thy wisdom. Blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighted in thee, to set thee on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore he made thee king, to do judgment and justice. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and spices, and of spices very great store, and precious stones. There came no more such abundant of spices as these which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. And the navy also of Hiram, that brought gold from Ophir, and brought in from Ophir great plenty of almug trees and precious stones. And the king made of the almug trees pillars for the house of the Lord, and for the king's house, harps also, and psalteries for singers. There came no such almug trees, nor were seen unto this day. And King Solomon gave unto the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which Solomon gave her of his royal bounty. So she turned and went to her own country, she and her servants. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 660 talents of gold. Beside that, he had of the merchantmen, and of the traffic of the spice merchants, and all of the kings of Arabia, and the governors of the country. And King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went to one target. And he made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 pound of gold went to one shield. And the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with the best gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind, and there were stays on either side on the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the stays. And 12 lions stood there on one side, and upon the other side the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold. And all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. For the king had at sea a navy of Tharshish, with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tharshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. And all the earth sought to Solomon, to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver, vessels of gold, and garments, and armor, and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year. And Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the cities for chariots, and with the king at Jerusalem. And the king made silver to be in Jerusalem as stones, and cedars he made to be as sycamore trees that are in the vale, for abundance. And Solomon had horses brought out of Egypt, and linen yarn. The king's merchants received the linen yarn at a price. And a chariot came up and went out of Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. So all the kings of the Hittites, for the kings of Syria, did they bring them out by their means. That's quite an itinerary of gold and silver, and he was very famous for it, wasn't he? Very famous for it. And the strange thing is that as this progresses, we're going to hear how it doesn't really help him much in the end. And it just goes to prove that where we put store on all these valuable things, in actual fact, in the spiritual world, in the kingdom of heaven, they count for nothing. You can't take it with you. They don't guarantee you your place in heaven. They can be more of a burden and a hindrance than anything else. But they were living an abundant life. And you wonder why God allowed that to be so. But then you look at this as a history book and you realize, well, God is telling us, you could have, nobody has had as much as King Solomon. He was the richest. And yet we know later on what's going to happen. And it counts for nothing. It counts for naught. So God wants us to know that no matter how much gold, how much silver, how many spices, how many wonderful trees. Now, having said that, I'm sure this was a very impressive temple. And, David's palace, his home, the way up to the temple, Jerusalem itself must have been, quite a beautiful, beautiful city. And something that had truly never been seen before. But there you have it. It's all earthly, fleshy goods. And our pursuit of those things counts for nothing. It's amazing, isn't it? God tells us these things, so that we don't make the mistake of pursuing them. And not... There was something I wrote this morning. Where was it? Getting rid of baggage. Here it is. This was in our daily bread this morning. No, that was talking about emotional baggage. I can't remember where it was now. I read something recently, and it was about one of the famous rich men of our country, and he lost all his riches and money. And he was standing on the bridge, San Francisco Bay Bridge. And a friend said to him, why don't we move away from the edge of this bridge, And he said, no, I need to stand here a while because all my life I pursued money and I had more than anybody else. And yet I was lacking. And I think that there's something better and I need to find it. Isn't that an amazing story? You know, even without the knowledge of Christianity or whatever, I mean, maybe he did have, but he suddenly realized that he had all the money and then he lost it. And it's like, I don't think he was that grieved about it, because when he had it, it didn't really bring him the happiness that he was seeking, the joy in his heart. And he said, there's got to be something better and I need to find it.
I think you're talking about Scrooge.
That's wonderful, isn't it? That's just, that's just epitomizes this story here that's playing out about King Solomon. Well, like I said, God gives us all of this because he loves us and he wants us to know so that we don't make the same mistakes. And I love you too, and I thank you for bearing with me that I'm doing this kind of late at night. I'm sorry about that, but better late than never, as they say. Thank you for liking, watching, sharing, and commenting. And slowly but surely, we're growing. We've got about 55 subscribers now, and we're coming up towards 800 videos on the channel. So, we're working our way through the Bible. Look at that. It's marvelous. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thanks again. Bye for now.